If you're trying to break into data analytics right now, there's something that most career advice won't tell you. The problem isn't your skills, it's not your portfolio, it's not even the market. The problem is you're playing the exact same game as everybody else. And this game is designed to bury you in a stack of applicants who all look the same, and it's super competitive. The question is, how do you stand out? In this video, I'm going to break down why cold applying is statistically the worst use of your time right now, and a strategy that bypasses the resume pile completely, and a backdoor into the healthcare industry that's unpopular advice, but is still pretty effective, and is exactly how I started my own career, and how to use AI to make all of this sharper than doing it the old way. My name is Jeff. I started out as a temp data entry worker over 17 years ago and got into a healthcare operations role from there 15 years ago, then became a data analyst 10 months after. I'm sharing this because I've been saying 15 years in my previous videos, but then when I actually looked at my old resume, that I realized I've been saying it all wrong, and this just shows how old I am. Now I'm a business analyst consultant at a top Fortune 500 healthcare company where I am today. I reviewed resumes, I've sat on the hiring panels, I've conducted technical interviews. So what I'm sharing comes from my experience on the other side, and actually on both sides. And I'm on a mission to help 10,000 people break into data analytics, and I want you to be one of them. So hit that subscribe button now, because each week I share practical tips and strategies to help you land your first data job and stay ahead as AI changes everything. So let's break this down. Here's what you're up against. The average corporate job posting gets over 250 plus applicants. Out of those 250, only about 2 to 3% will get an interview. That's roughly 5 to 7 people out of 250. Now, at the bottom, 98%. So 98% of those Fortune 500 companies are using automated tracking systems. We've all heard this, ATS systems, to screen those resumes before a human ever touches them. And then the recruiters who do see your resume, they're spending about 6 to 8 seconds on it. 6 seconds. That's not even enough time to read your summary. They're just scanning it and looking for ways to say no, and then seeing who can make the shortlist. Now, so out of the share of those applicants, so this is gonna be 7%. 7% of those applicants are employee referrals. 7%. But that 7% leads to 30 to 40% of all hires. So that means you are 4 times to 5 times more likely to get hired than someone who cold apply. So look at what the numbers are telling you. So let me be direct with you. If you're the average candidate right now on paper, you have the same tools as everyone, same experience, portfolio quality, same credentials, or you may be below average. Your entire strategy is just blasting applications online, just hoping someone picks you out of the 250 resumes in 6 to 8 seconds. This is going to be the hardest version of the game that you can play, because I know this because I lived it. I graduated in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, and I couldn't find a job. And that's not because I wasn't smart enough. That's not because you're not smart enough. And it's not because we weren't working hard enough. It's because the system is built for volume. It's not built to find hidden talent or take risks on someone who's proactive, who's getting out there, who's putting themselves, that shows that work ethic. This is made to filter out people as fast as possible. So when a hiring manager recruiter has 250 plus resumes, 6 seconds that they spend on each, they're not looking for potential, they're looking for reasons to say no. So if you want to stand out, you need a strategy that gets you out of the pile completely. So here is the thing that nobody tells you. The best candidates are not the ones who get hired. A lot of the times, they're just the people who got in first and were seen first. So the single most effective thing that you can do is find a way to never be in that stack of 250 resumes in the first place. Find a way to bypass that. And that means referrals, internal relationships, warm introductions, direct conversations with people who are already inside the companies you want to work at. And I get it. It's a hard strategy because you have to put yourself out there. You might not have a network already. You might not think it's going to work for you. So here, I'm going to be honest with you and tell you some of the limits of this advice in this video. I can sit here and tell you what generally works, but I don't know your local market. I don't know all of your target companies. I don't know the specific hiring manager at that target organization, what they actually care about. The people who do know, they're going to be the hiring managers, the directors, the senior analysts, the team that leads the companies that you're targeting. When you talk to them and you can actually reach one of them, you'll find out what skills they actually care about, what kind of project would stand out, what their team is missing, what they wish candidates knew and understood before applying. That is more valuable than anything that I can speculate from a YouTube video. So while people hate networking, and I get it, I am the same way, but it is an uncomfortable truth that candidates need to do what they need to do to get hired in a tough and competitive job market. We just have to play the game so that it's easier for you to get hired. So the question changes from how do I make a better resume? Because this is now just a given in today's market. This is what you have to bring to the table. It has to be a good resume. You need to write the best resume. You need to build a great portfolio regardless, because that's just what it takes to compete. But once you have that, you have to think about all the ways you get seen by the right people. Otherwise, it doesn't even matter that you have a good resume or a good portfolio. So when we look at this, the left side is going to be cold applying. This is where you cold apply. And this is the stack of resumes. Let's just assume this is digital. Digital resumes. All of these are different candidates that the hiring manager is going to have to go through. They're going to have to click their links, PDFs. But just imagine it's old school and it's a bunch of paper and a bunch of actual candidates they're looking through. So we have to think, how do we skip this whole part? How can I get in front of the right people? How can I get in front of them even before the job is posted? So on the right side, this is where we think of referrals. So here, that's going to be internal referrals, warm introductions by people that you already know. And then that's going to be direct conversations with people that you network with from scratch or from a warm introduction. But these are going to be direct conversations with the people who matter and that you do the outreach for. This is where you want to be. Now, I get it. All right, this part is now going to be not the most popular advice, and I know this, but in a tough job market, this might be your best avenue. It might be your only avenue. And it's exactly what worked for me because I was a below average candidate. And I know this is not the sexy advice. Nobody wants to hear take a step sideways or start at a lower role than where you planned. It's going to take longer, it's harder, and in a tough job market, sometimes this is your only real avenue. But the people who take the available door and use it strategically end up further ahead than the people who just spent 2 years cold applying to the roles that they weren't competitive for, just hoping for the best. Now, if you already work in healthcare, which is going to be this left column here, here's what I would do. I would apply the data skills I'm learning in my current role. I would also find ways to build important projects or get and pitch important projects that actually help your current role and your department. And then next, you don't need to wait for a job title change. You just need to make that data work visible and show the business impact of where you are already. And what that means is just get on important projects, start pitching, and then start working your way up from your own work to important things for the department. And then once you get known by other departments and that you can help and you free up your own time and you show how valuable you are to your boss, and now you can take on more work, you can get pitched and put on a lot of projects that will be cross-functional on other departments and teams to have a better impact. And ideally, that's where you want to get to. Now, if you're coming outside of healthcare and you're not competitive enough on paper to land an analytics role directly, I would seriously consider taking a lateral healthcare operations role where you could work with the data more, or even take a lower role if needed. This actually applies for if you already work in healthcare and you don't work with data. I would still try to get into a lateral role where you get to work with more healthcare data. And typically that's going to be within an operations healthcare role. And the departments that you could see, this is going to be a few of them in my other videos. You'll see I dive into this more, but think of things that are translatable across various industry. You have claim support, you have member services, you have provider operations, you have revenue cycle, quality reporting. But the key here is it has to be what I call a bridge role. And what I mean by that is it needs to be able, you need to be in this role where you can learn processes. It's not just any healthcare job. This is a bridge role where you can learn the actual healthcare processes that matter. And like I said earlier, you have access to data where you have, in some capacity, even if it's not your primary job, but you get to work with data. And where it means if you learn these data analytics skills, it actually improves your value in the role that you have. And the other thing that you want inside this bridge role is internal mobility. You want to be able to get promoted and have a lot of opportunities where they want to promote people from within, and that there's a path for you to move internally into an analytics role, into a healthcare analyst type role. Even if this is not the specific title, as long as you're doing the work and you can build up a better experience and better portfolio. That's what makes it a bridge, not a dead end. So the three things that you just want to look for: healthcare processes, access to data, and your skills transfer to another job. If it doesn't check those boxes, it's going to be just another job and it's going to take you longer to transition. And I know this because I lived it. I was an average candidate or below average if you have Asian parents. When I graduated, it was in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. I had a 2.4 GPA. There was also debt collection calls coming in. Nobody was trying to have me as an average candidate. No one was trying to hire me. I couldn't even get a job as a receptionist. I sent a lot of resumes over and over again trying to get whatever job I could to make sure that I could start to pay the mounting debt and student loans that were piling up. So I took the first job that I could get. It was a temp data entry position at a healthcare medical group, and I sat at the desk typing in diabetic lab results from faxes and PDFs for our Medicare Advantage members. This is get the quality measures for HEDIS screenings, and I was the one getting those results and putting it into our system. Just not mind-numbing data entry. I had to even hide the clock on my computer because it made the time go by so slowly. I literally had to remove it from my screen because I was watching the minutes crawl and it was more agonizing than the work itself. Here's what I couldn't see at that time. The department that I landed, it cared about data in a way that most departments didn't, and it was tied to performance incentives, CMS star ratings, regulatory reporting, risk adjustment. It was tied to money for the business. Healthcare analytics found me. I didn't go looking for it. I stumbled into it. It was actually my foot in the door that got me to my eventually bridge role that helped me just move internally and just get me the experience so that I can move internally. And sometimes your first role that you get isn't going to be your final role. Sometimes you need to go through multiple roles until you break into that top tier healthcare analytics role. Sometimes your first win is just getting into the building. The first role was led to me working really hard, getting promoted to various roles that taught me about the business. I learned about risk adjustment, quality measures, learned about healthcare benefits, and I went from being the assistant to the data analyst of the risk adjustment department and quality department. Then I transitioned into a better bridge role of becoming a healthcare data representative, where I was building out health plan benefits inside our systems for our members. And then using my Excel knowledge and templates and a little bit of SQL just to save time. Then I took a detour into marketing because I was a marketing major and that was my dream job. And I was hustling to get experience outside of work. So on top of working my health plan data job, I will work outside 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks at a small business, dance business, where I was doing marketing because I couldn't break in as a marketing major inside this tough job market. So what I needed to do was build experience because that was lacking. So I volunteered and I did that. Eventually, I was able to leave, got my dream job, or what I thought was my dream job of doing marketing and doing campaigns and working on catalogs and being the lead graphic designer and being creative. But I missed analytics. And what happened next was the data analyst position opened up at my previous company. And because of my work ethic and my skills, I was recommended by a lot of senior management to apply for the role. And that's how I became a healthcare data analyst almost 15 years ago. And knowing what I know now, I believe I could do it faster. But the point is, you can succeed long enough if you think of a longer time horizon. And I've heard a similar story to mine for multiple people who've broken into healthcare analytics, that it's harder to break in as an entry level data analyst or healthcare analyst for most people unless you're competitive. You went to a good school, you have a great portfolio, you have the experience, and then you networked while you're in school or you worked while you were in school. What I heard more often was people learned the business in another role for a year or two, then they transitioned into a role that got them the healthcare experience and the analytics skills. And sometimes it was already into an analytics role, or they transitioned into they went into a bridge role like I did and then went into an analytics role. So the question is, how would I now speed this up knowing what I know now? First, I would learn the base technical skills while networking with key decision makers or people with the insight into the department, what they need, what skills actually matter to them, what healthcare knowledge, and then what I need to do specifically to be a candidate that they want on their team. Because we can tell you, learn Excel, learn SQL, learn a visualization tool, Tableau, Power BI, and then learn Python. But I can tell you from experience, a BI tool in my current department, we don't usually do visualizations. We're doing more data engineering work. I'm actually doing a lot more development work. And especially when I came into this role, I did a lot more automations in Excel, Access, and legacy systems, SQL, doing some complex coding. If you didn't know that and you're applying into our department, you wouldn't have that insight that you could skip a BI tool because we don't need it. This is why it's important to get a feel from multiple managers inside and hiring managers, VPs, whoever decision makers that you can get a hold of that can help you get connected to the people that are important so that you know what you need to build and so you don't waste time. And now you're probably thinking, how am I going to do this? And how do I find these people? So, if the strategy is to get in front of the right people, let's talk about what that actually looks like. Because most people call networking, what they call networking is not really networking. A survey of in 2025 of about 1,000 US workers found this 54%. 54% of them got their current job through a connection. That is more than half. And then we have 21%. In that same survey, over 21% of job seekers said they never even asked anyone for a referral, not even once. So let's look at this gap. The problem is that it's not that networking doesn't work. The problem is that most people aren't actually doing it. And then there's going to be the few people who send a few messages, get no response, and then they quit. But that's exactly what the math tells you should happen. In cold outreach, one of the things that people don't realize in networking is that it takes volume, and there's this unrealistic expectation inside the industry that if I implement this strategy, that it'll work for me. But it takes work. Let's give you a more realistic expectation. So email reply rates in cold outreach in general are about 3 to 5%. LinkedIn is a little better, around 9 to 10% with targeted connections. So you're going to just think about 10 messages with 0 replies is not a failure. It's just a small sample size of single digit odds. So we have to set more realistic expectations. So think 100 targeted touches and messages might get you 5 to 10 replies. Now, a few of those could turn into real conversations, and then 1 or 2 of those might turn into a realistic referral opportunity. So here's how I would run this. I would build a target company list, and for each company, I would identify at least 4 people who could influence hiring. This could be a recruiter, a hiring manager, senior analyst, a director, or even upper management if they're a smaller company and upper management is the one who loves proactive people, especially if their founders are proactive people. So you can also think about that in people who are more active on social media. So you have to think of guerrilla marketing ways of trying to get in front of the right people. So the goal is going to be one real conversation, not a blast. So here you also want to track everything, who you reached out to, who replied, who gave advice, and who mentioned an opening. You want also, because if you don't track it, you're going to judge this whole strategy on how it feels, and feelings are unreliable on what gets you ignored and how to improve while you're going through this whole process. The other thing that you're going to want to do too, and what I would do, is I would use AI before every outreach. I'd research the company's current initiatives, analyze their job postings on specific skills and keywords that keep showing up. I would prep questions that show that I understand what they're working on. And that's the difference between I'd love to learn about your team and versus I noticed your team just posted 2 quality analyst roles focused on HEDIS reporting, and I'm building experience exactly in this area based on improving star measures. Here is what my report looks like. Would this be something that would be beneficial for your team? Or how could I make this more competitive? And that's going to take 20 minutes of research. Most people don't even do that. And then you going above and beyond, that's your edge. The other thing I would do too is I would network in person as well because it's even better. So, meetups, conventions, healthcare events, analytics events, it's harder to show up and do consistently, but it's significantly easier to build trust face to face. It's not as scalable, but it's more effective, in at least in my experience. And I want you to think about networking more as something like going to the gym. You don't just go once and expect the results. You have to put in the reps each and every week. At first, nothing happens. You're going to send messages. You might get ignored, or you're going to get ignored. But then eventually it compounds. You get better at outreach. You just improve overall. People start remembering your name. Conversations turn into advice. Advice turns into better applications. The relationships can turn into potential referrals. And if you want a starting target, I would target, if this was me personally, I would target about 40 targeted messages. So this could be connection requests, follow-ups, recruiter messages, referral ask. This is not going to be spam. Just think of these messages as reps, but this is you. Think of the human side as well. You're building a relationship with someone else. So it's not, it goes beyond networking. So treat the other person like a human and like you're building a long-term relationship. So show them respect and treat them as a colleague, as a professional. This is going to be the real networking test. So you're going to need to put in a lot of reps. This is probably, if we're just going at what I would do, if I was working a full-time job and I had a lot of other things I was balancing, I would target probably your 160 targeted touches per a month. So that's 40 a week. Over 6 months, you're gonna get close to about 1,000 relationship building reps. And then that is what should help you get a referral, at least by the cold numbers. We don't have any real comps, but this is what I would personally do based on my research of how cold email converts currently. And it's not 10 messages. This is the real test and the real work that needs to go into this. This is why a lot of people get don't see the real expectations of what you have to put into this, because if it were easy, a lot of people would have more jobs because it would be easy for them to just do this. Most people won't do this long enough to get results because it is hard. But that where people will fail and not want to do this, that's going to be your edge and that's going to be your opening. So this is not the answer that some people want to hear because they want the easy answer, but this is the one that I would seriously take inside this market if I were starting over today. And if you want help turning this into an actual plan, resume, projects, networking strategy, positioning, and get help and support and coaching specifically for me and our community, all to break into healthcare analytics, that is exactly what we do inside the AI Healthcare Analyst Lab. Link is in the description if you're interested, so check that out. More information. But we're building this for people who are serious about breaking in and getting the support while doing it. So watch this next video because YouTube thinks that you're going to enjoy it. And until then, query responsibly, and I'll see you in the next video.